back to the flotilla here. We kind of glossed over it, but I mean, I know, of course, you're prepared for detention by the Israeli government, but how are you prepared for that? Given the threats that Ben Gvir is issuing, what is basically the consensus among maybe your veteran boat, but also the broader flotilla from Greta Thunberg all the way to Greg Stoker?
Well, if they want to, throw a bunch of U.S. veterans doing a uh, action protected by international law into a terror dungeon, all who were honorably discharged from military service, they're fine to deal with that blowback. And, we have systems and support groups in place to blow up our representatives and parallel actions plans. So this is actually a much larger effort than just the boats. There's a lot of planning going in behind this that redounds back to the continental United States and each and every one of those 40 countries that is sending a boat and a delegation.
Were you in communication with the US government at all about your plans in order to have some sort of protection if Israel tries to attack?
Well, I mean, we're eventually going to reach out to the State Department, let them know, that we're out
Right.
there. But again, who's going to be handling our case? Mike
Exactly.
Huckabee.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know that, for example, Greta was in communication with the Swedish government, but it just is, I mean, it just underscores what you're doing, that even without an administration that is probably going to heed your call or listen, that this is still something that you guys feel is important, especially with the strength and numbers piece. I mean, this is so much larger than previous efforts, given Israel's limited capacity on the water. It's a little bit more promising, at least, to overwhelm them a bit this time, maybe.
I mean, I'm prepared to have the whole thing get interdicted, but
Right.
usually what they use for interdiction is their Syatet 13, which is like their Temu version of Navy SEALs, their Naval Special Operations Unit. And they're very small. There aren't a lot of them. So generally, what's been happening is they've been sending like a security team to take control of the boats, and then steer them under arms into Ashdod or Haifa. But we have so many vessels, and if we manage to make it there on time, yeah, who knows how they're going to react. And there's actually aid in this convoy. It's not just a PR clout stunt. So, and there are also plans for distributing it and establishing a humanitarian corridor for future flotillas and establishing the precedent that it can be done.
Is that and when you talk about your mission here, the breaking of the siege and the escalation of breaking the siege with these flotillas continuously coming, being unrelenting and growing in the movement, is that just as important as the work of hopefully trying to get aid, or even I know that you're likely going to get intercepted, but just the continuing to put pressure on in this way feels like that is just as important as anything, really.
Yeah, it's also we're in an information war for the existential survival of the people of Gaza, and there's really no way that they can sugarcoat blocking this aid. So that's another pressure point as well that we fully intend to exploit because it's completely inexcusable. Again, I refuse to exist in a world where we can watch the annihilation of an entire population and just hang out at brunch and try to pretend like everything's fine and like this isn't eventually going to affect me and everybody I care about eventually.
Exactly. And before I let you go, Greg, just your overall assessment of where we are in the movement for a liberated and free Palestine. And your show has been great and focused on this, laser focused on this from the beginning, Colonial Outcasts. But we talked about this last time, and perhaps we haven't spoken since, say, like Iran responded and hit Israel in ways that are more severe than their advertising. But I think we did had at one point speak about how Hezbollah had been successful in fighting Israel in southern Lebanon, but then they took a significant blow. It appears like Israel's, military power reasserted itself, but also got into a defensive crouch because of Iran's success. So I'm curious what you feel like from the outside is like your view of Israel's, strength outside of how it's trying to present itself in terms of deterrence?
Well, they can never reestablish their deterrence because that means they would have to achieve a military victory over Hamas or Hezbollah, or Iran, which none of which is possible.
Right.
They're making efforts to disarm Hezbollah through political machinations in Lebanon, but that's not a military victory. That's not something that's going to deter further future aggression. Obviously, their own senior disaffected commanders have told publications like Haaretz and Mariv and Ynet News that the war in Gaza, as the strategic goals are stated, is unwinnable. So yeah, but in terms, deterrence can't be reestablished. Their edifice, their multi-generational edifice of propaganda and influence within the U.S. government is shattered forever, even though like AIPAC still has control in some ways and influence. Like it's out of the darkness, and it can't last forever now. And so in terms of the Palestine movement, there just aren't enough of us. So we're trying to preach a doctrine of intersectionality. So this is why I bring in ICE, ICE abolition, prison abolition, environmentalism. All of these things intersect with Palestine. Because it's like the linchpin. It's the linchpin of U.S. imperialism and capitalism.
I think I said it to a friend recently talking about it. It sounds a little corny, but Palestine is the heart of the world right now. And it is the world right now as far as I'm concerned. And truly, lastly, a little bit more specific on this, the IDF, the calls for reservists. From Netanyahu. I'm curious about your assessment about this because some apparently just aren't showing up, and there's a lot of talk about fatigue within the IDF or depression because it's quite hard to carry out a genocide, thoughts and prayers. But it appears that they may not have the numbers for his Gaza City ground invasion plans, although the brutality there from the air is still absolutely horrific.
Yeah, of course, but there's not really much left to bomb except the people themselves. A ground offensive would take a lot of men. It would be really grueling. And a lot of these people don't want to be mobilized. That wasn't the deal when they thought when they had to go into the Israeli military. They're going to do 2 years, get out as a specialist, and then go work a tech job in Tel Aviv and live a nice life, like, I don't know, doing whatever they do in Ibiza or some EDM festival. And like, they literally didn't sign up for like a 4 or 5 year contract like professional militaries do. Like they weren't mentally prepared for this going into it. And now finally, I believe it was like last year, people were expecting like a higher suicide rate amongst like Israeli soldiers. And as a veteran who like is kind of like active within like veteran suicide circles, it's like that doesn't really happen immediately. You need to give it time to be like, to see these guys being unable to reintegrate back into society after what they've done, unable to hold a job, be in a relationship, like these kind of things have to happen, and that takes time. So not only are reservists not going to be showing up as in the same numbers as they were, but they're going to deal with like a massive suicide rate. And that's only going to get worse the more time that these guys are separated from what they've done or what happened in Gaza in their time in service.
Well, I really appreciate your time today, Greg, from the flotilla, the Global Sumud Flotilla, sailing to Gaza to break the siege. Everyone can check out Colonial Outcasts. I saw you did a podcast from the flotilla as well, so committed to the game.
Yeah, just to make sure that this would work.
Exactly. It gave me a lot of confidence, but I'm so glad to be able to speak with you, and please stay safe. And love and solidarity to everyone on the boats with you. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.